Brian, how are you doing? What's new?
I am doing great, and there is something new. Actually, it's new to the world as of recording. Just this last week, the third installment of E.K. Johnston's Padme Amidala anthology came out, Queen's Hope. So that's new. That's exciting. So, yeah, was reading that. But what about you? What have you been up to? I think you've been doing something similar.
I have listened to Queen's Hope on Audible, and I loved listening to Kat Tabor. She has read all three of these audiobooks,
Hmm.
and I think we've mentioned this before, but she actually got her start in Knights of the Old Republic as Mission Veo, the Twi'lek, from Terrace.
Hmm.
And she later voiced Leia in The Force Unleashed, and most famously, I would say, voiced Padme Amidala in The Clone Wars.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, and she's been on board to narrate all three of the E.K. Johnson's books there about Padme Amidala. So that's always cool. I like it when you get the actual like voice actor to do the audiobook because it gives it just kind of an extra little level of immersion, I guess.
Yeah, authenticity. I
Hmm.
feel I feel guilty because I've only listened to Queen's Hope and not Queen's Peril and Queen's Shadow, but this book got me excited to read those in the future. And honestly, like I want a Queen of Naboo and Handmaidens TV show on Disney Plus. Like
Yeah.
everyone wants a Knights of Ren thing, but I want the Queen and the Handmaidens show.
Yeah, that would be good. That would actually be really interesting because one of the things you get from the book, I mean, there's a lot going on, between Padme and the handmaidens and kind of the skills and the tasks that they had to complete, all the way from the time we first meet Padme and the Phantom Menace, all the way up through Revenge of the Sith. So I think that would actually be like really interesting. Where would you set it? Would you set it like on Coruscant, like during the senatorial days, or would it be on Naboo, or a little bit back and forth, or?
Um, uh, I would primarily like to keep it on Naboo because I love Naboo. It's just it's kind of like Italy, India, all things green and beautiful, all in
Mhm.
one. And I guess like I like the fashion on Naboo. But
Yeah.
like that's not to say like Coruscant couldn't appear. I mean, like I'm sure they would find a reason for Tatooine to appear.
That's right.
Um, and maybe some new worlds, maybe Alderaan and like Bail and Padme can have like some Senate bros action, like where they like kind of team up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they'd be doing some Rebel Alliance forming. That would be good. But yeah, I would definitely be interested to see uh some sort of series or something about the Handmaidens.
Yeah.
And you could do live action on and see Naboo. That would be awesome. I think it would uh kind of transfer over to like an animated type of a thing. You
Oh,
could keep that same kind of like Clone Wars animation since we already have a lot of Padme stories in that series. So,
yeah.
yeah, I think there's lots of potential,
Yeah.
outside of these books, which are fantastic. So,
Yeah. I mean, it could even be kind of like the forces of destiny, and you could like kind of target it uh, towards younger kids,
mhm.
maybe girls, and like the handmaidens and Padme have some awesome outfits, and like maybe they could like kind of create like some dolls and stuff, and like action figures and like all that.
Yeah, there you go, there you go. Yeah, we could see that line. I think there was a Forces of Destiny kind of doll line. I remember seeing the Princess Leia on Endor one because it came with a little wicket. She had her poncho and stuff.
Oh, so Padme, I think she's an awesome character. I grew up with her, so I kind of empathize with her.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on Padme?
Yeah, so Padme is a pretty cool character, right? So we first meet her in the Phantom Menace. She's the Queen of Naboo, but you're really spending, I guess, the bulk of the film not realizing that Padme is necessarily the Queen of Naboo. That's a little bit of undercover work from the handmaidens there, and then we get into her story a little bit more in Attack of the Clones. She's spending time with Anakin. You see that love story kind of blossoming, and then into Revenge of the Sith, where by this time they're married, and she is sort of the only thing that Anakin is kind of clinging on to there, at the very end. But I think that her story was really compelling. One thing I'll say about the movies is that kind of her story was a little thin. I didn't think that, she had a lot to do in the films, which is a little bit unfortunate, but it gave us the opportunity to go back in Clone Wars and really kind of learn more about her and her backstory and, some people from her past, and really kind of flesh out her character a little bit better, which was really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think the prequels are kind of more mythic and tragic. Padme definitely has more of a role in episode 1 than episode 2 and 3. She kind of becomes a little bit more passive, in episodes 2 and 3. And I kind of just wish she didn't die of sadness. Like, I think you can make the argument that Emperor Palpatine drained her Force energy,
Right.
To keep Vader alive, kind of like Frankenstein. But it wasn't clear if that was Lucas's intention, but in my mind, it is my headcanon because I think it's tragically beautiful or beautifully tragic,
Hmm.
I guess I
Yeah.
quoted Wicked there, but
Yeah, there you
um,
go.
it's funny because Padme's name, I believe it came from maybe George Lucas was inspired by the hero with 1,000 faces, because in the book he was talking about dualities, like that you would find in the hero's journey, like kind of getting beyond them. Campbell called it the atonement with the Father, like where you kind of meet like the power, kind of behind the scenes, and kind of realize like the binaries kind of like are the same, and they kind of like disintegrate, and the hero
Hmm.
transcends. And one of the quotes that's kind of about that is, I'm probably pronouncing this wrong. I'm sorry. If someone knows how to pronounce it better, please leave it in the comments or send us a message. But Om Mani Padme Hum, which is the jewel is in the lotus. So
Hmm.
Padme means lotus. And he kind of elaborates in The Masks of God, Volume 2. The jewel Mani in the lotus Padme signifies on one level the imminence of nirvana, the jewel, in samsara, the lotus; another, the arrival of the mind, the jewel, in nirvana, the lotus.
Yeah, there was a lot of kind of inspiration you would think that George took when coming up with the name and her character, because I think that Amidala also means some sort of flower, but Nabiri, which was like her family name, is like an Egyptian word. I think that means like mother of twins or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot of kind of thought put into kind of the construction of her character, at least in in kind of the naming aspect of her.
She's really a mythic character, like reminds me of Isis in the story of Osiris and Isis. And it's a very mythological, kind of biblical conceit for a woman to like kind of give birth to, like, I guess the Skywalker twins are sort of like, I don't know, kind of like gods, kind of like on the level of Shimmy, I guess.
Hmm.
I'm glad that the Clone Wars exist and that E.K. Johnston wrote a great trilogy and kind of fleshed out Padme's character more. But it's kind of interesting because I think sometimes you miss a lot of the point of Star Wars if you interpret it like prose rather than like poetry or as a myth. you know, and maybe like the prequels kind of are more written mythically than even the original trilogy, you know, but I've always kind of like, I mean, I grew up with the character. She was I was a young girl, you know, and she was kind of, I guess, like the girl character. And even though I did identify a lot with Anakin, like, I think Padme deserves more love, and I would love to see more merch. I would love to see her acknowledged more, you know, and given the respect I think she deserves.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And you had, like, coming off of the original trilogy, you had Princess Leia, who was a pretty major player. So then you kind of almost in a way just automatically identify Padme as that same kind of character. But you know, I think they were a little bit different. I mean, obviously, I get, you know, she's Leia's mother at the end of the day. But yeah, I think to give her a little bit of a bigger role would have been good. And that's one of the cool things about the book series from E.K. Johnston is it really kind of dives into, you know, not even necessarily like the Clone Wars. You had kind of her part in, you know, being a senator and playing her part in the Clone Wars, but this is more of just, you know, who she is and where she came from and how she, you know, got to be where she was. And I think that backstory is really compelling and really
Yeah.
interesting.
Speaking of where she was, how does where does the Queen's Hope kind of start out?
Yeah, so the Queen's Hope. So this is the third book in the series by E.K. Johnston, and I want to say that in the timeline, I think Queen's Shadow came out first, and then Queen's Peril came out, which actually is set before Queen's Shadow, and then Queen's Hope, which just recently was released. But it starts basically at the very end of Attack of the Clones, so you're getting kind of that kind of the aftermath of, you know, the wedding and the Clone Wars starting. And you and I have talked about, and we think that is really kind of a key character point for Anakin, something that never really got explored too much because it was just a whirlwind of things going on in his life, you know, over the course of that week or whatever it was. But really, it's the same for Padme, and that's where this book kind of picks up and gets us going.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised because the cover it has Padme's kind of green velvet dress, you know, with the hood. And I was like, oh, it's going to be like kind of around Revenge of the Sith. But no, it's probably just she loves the outfit and she probably wore it like, you know, like more than once, you know, which makes sense. So it's kind of more
That
like right after Attack of the Clones.
that's right. Yeah, during times of war on Naboo, I guess you have to recycle your outfits a little bit more. And part of the story is, you know, now she's gone into being a senator and she's spending more time away from the handmaidens, which I think is interesting because they're really kind of an integral part of her growing up. I think she was elected as queen when she was like 14 years old or something. So they've been a part of her life. So it's almost in a way like a little bit of reunion when she's getting to interact with the handmaidens again because she hasn't seen them for some time. They've been off doing their own kind of philanthropic work and stuff like that back on Naboo and elsewhere. But
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was re-listening to episode 91 where we talked about Kristen Baver's Skywalker A Family at War, and
Mhm.
it does kind of mention how like Attack of the Clones like really happens really quickly, you know? And it's kind of like Padme's life is in danger. Anakin protects her. They fall in love. Uh, he massacres a Tuscan village, and then they they try to save Obi-Wan. They kind of fail, and then they are rescued, and the Clone Wars starts, and then they are married. And I think like it happens in days or maybe a week at most, but it's like
Mhm.
zero therapy happened in that time, and it's like that's kind of addressed in this book. And I was like, oh, they did their homework, you know. So
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, one of the things I like about the book a lot is it kind of goes into kind of their relationship as newlyweds, which anyone listening out there, when you get married, there's like this period of adjustment that happens when you go through that. But they're going through it, kind of on the forefront of this war, and they're doing it in like this hidden fashion, right? Because Anakin's a Jedi, she is a senator. They can't really, make their marriage publicly known. Plus, they're going to be on opposite sides of the galaxy, so they're trying to kind of navigate how that's going to work and what that means for them.
Yeah.
Even down to like the kind of the logistics of, how are they going to talk and get messages back and forth. So I really liked that, and it really felt very real in terms of the way that their relationship would have actually worked.
Yeah. I really enjoyed kind of getting Padme's kind of depth. She's a very selfless person, and she's hopeful, and I think like when she does finally find love, she wants to hold on to something just for her. And I'm like, oh, that's so sad and kind of beautiful. And Padme and Anakin, they love each other, but that's not going to make them perfect. And like, Padme didn't, I get the impression she didn't date super much, and like Anakin didn't date, and he wasn't raised to like, as a Jedi, like be like, this is how you plan for a successful marriage, So they love each other, but it doesn't mean like it's going to go perfect. And like, it was kind of cool to see like how they kind of had to figure out like, how are we going to have a secret marriage? And like Anakin accidentally visits Sabe, like thinking it's Padme, which it's actually sort of funny, And yeah, and it's like I have to wait 3 hours until the security program kind of dies down.
Right. Yeah, it is played off, fairly humorously in the book, but and yeah, that's how kind of Sabe pieces this together, that she got married behind her back, and wasn't honest with her, and that's kind of a big sticking point for Sabe.
Yeah.
That they've always been open and honest with each other. As I mentioned, they'd spent the majority of their lives together at this point. So
Yeah.
it was just a really good examination kind of that particular time in Padme's life as this war is about to begin. And I kind of like what you'd said when you'd said just from the cover you assumed it was going to be more Revenge of the Sith, and that's kind of what I thought too. But I think placing it right here is really key, because we get kind of some of those Revenge of the Sith stories for Padme. So setting it right here in this kind of pivotal moment, I think was a really interesting choice, and something I'm glad that they decided to, or that E.K. Johnston decided to do.
Yeah, because we know how it ends, but to kind of see the beginning when they're very hopeful and like kind of literally in their honeymoon period, it's nice, and I feel like this Anakin, like it was an accurate, picture, and I think some people will be like, I think it was too flattering of a picture of Anakin, and some people will be like, I don't think it was flattering enough. But I'm like, I think that's the character, is like he's a flawed, kind of like Achilles like tragic figure.
Yeah, no, I see it as being pretty flattering of him, but also pretty realistic in how I think he is portrayed, because we've talked about it, especially in that episode, and when we were talking about Kristen Baver's Skywalker Family at War book, we kind of talked about how Anakin was really one that would put all of his emotions, he would project them out onto the people around him, and that's why he was so kind of emotionally invested, obviously with Padme, but also with Obi-Wan and with Palpatine, and that kind of led to his ultimate downfall there, because he never really understood how to have this sort of relationship. And I think that the book does a good job of kind of illustrating that. They make it very clear that the time that they're together. They're not, Anakin the Jedi and Padme the senator. They're just, husband and wife, and they're all in on that for the time they get to spend together because they're, those moments are pretty few and far between.
Yeah, they do kind of talk about like how Padme's heart is infinite. She can love like her handmaiden Sabe and Anakin. Like her heart is just, full of love, and she loves sharing
Mm-hmm.
it. But with Anakin, it's kind of more like he fractures his heart into different cells, like sections, like I would say his mother and Padme kind of like take up the majority, and then like there's parts for Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Rex, but I think his love is a bit more about control, sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And like people love differently, but like with Anakin, like it kind of trends more towards unhealthy, and definitely
Mm-hmm.
kind of ends up like in not a great place.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You'd mentioned Anakin's mother there, so that's probably a good transition. I don't want to get into too many spoilers on here, but there are a couple of vignettes of the all of the Skywalker mothers, which
Beautiful.
was new because I don't remember if they had those in the first two books. I want to say that they did not. But yeah, they're incredible. The first one comes and it's telling kind of this short story about Shmi Skywalker, and then you get Aunt Beru and um, uh,
You get Padme, and then you get Bria Organa.
Bria Organa. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and yeah, those were unexpected, but yeah, very beautiful. What did you think about the little asides here we got throughout this thing?
Um, I mean, it kind of reminds me of episode 120. We talked about the C.S. Lewis quote, like about fairy tales, and I think Star Wars is a fairy tale, and I think it's beautiful that this book kind of highlighted the Skywalker mothers. I like how you said that in
Hmm.
fairy tale vignette kind of manners. It reminded me of Matthew Stover's The Dark Interludes vignettes from the Revenge of the Sith novelization, and I just was like floored. Like I was like, oh, we're getting Shimmy Skywalker content as a fairy tale. Like,
Right.
I know some people out there are probably like maybe went comatose, but um, I think it's beautiful, and like it's kind of highlighting different strengths that might not be seen as strengths. Like
Hmm.
in a modern day like sci-fi fantasy, like a series of movies, and I love that they embraced, like the female characters in a fairy tale manner.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I thought that they were really awesome, and like I said, I don't want to get into spoilers about those, but I did I did see the potential for those stories being expanded upon, whether it's kind of in a next series of books that maybe E.K. Johnston will be working on, or
Yeah.
things that we'll maybe get to see in live action or animation at some point. But yeah, those were really great, unexpected, and quite the pleasant surprise, I thought.
Yeah. And kind of speaking of fairy tales, they probably need to listen to or read, but like honestly, it's probably going to be listen. Like that's how I consume content. I'm sorry. I need to probably listen to E.K. Johnson's take on um, the Sleeping Beauty story
Mm.
because
Hmm.
that's always been like my favorite Disney movie, and like it's a fairy tale with a rich, complex history, and I love seeing different takes on it. So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, judging by these three books, and then Ahsoka, which I've listened to as well, I would have to assume that her other uh, writing in kind of this genre would be excellent as well.
yeah, and she also wrote A Thousand Nights, Exit Pursued by a Bear, that inevitable Victorian thing, which I think is an excellent, title. Yeah, just like, and Spindle, which is the second iteration of A Thousand Nights,
Hmm.
Etherbound, The Afterword. I just think like kind of search authors you love, like Star Wars authors you love on Goodreads, and like try to support their non-Star Wars works because they're also great. Obviously that's why they're writing for Star Wars. So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's important to branch out, but yeah, if you find an author that you really kind of click with, it's good to support some of their other work too, because maybe you'll be introduced to something that you uh, might love as well, or kind of a different genre of something you don't normally do. And I think it's good to kind of expand the horizons from time to time whenever you get a chance, I think.
yeah, I mean that's what we try to do on the podcast, and like you guys can judge if we do it well, but I don't know. I think we do, but kind of
That
speaking of expanding their horizons, this is like you're going to love this segue. Like Anakin expands his horizons by meditating at Qui-Gon's monument.
Oh yeah, that's right, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think that is kind of a really impactful part. I felt like we got more Anakin content in this than I was kind of initially expecting. But I think that stuff is really good, and it kind of shows, really like we'd said with the relationship with Padme, but really just kind of where he was at with his own psyche and kind of with all of the pressure and this kind of whirlwind, couple of weeks leading up to this thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was a really nice moment of him getting to reconnect there at that monument on Naboo. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah. It does make me sad because I feel like if Qui-Gon would have been around, like, I don't think he would have probably slaughtered a village, and I think he would have brought balance to the Force,
Yeah,
and Qui-Gon meant so much to him, and I don't know, what can I say, but it's nice that Qui-Gon was there, and I thought it was interesting that it kind of mentions how like Anakin decided he was going to marry Padme, when he saw um, the Larses, like Baru and Owen, kind of just like how their closeness, you know.
hmm yeah. I think that's one of the cool things, and one of the things I'm most looking forward to. And Kenobi is kind of seeing their dynamic a little bit because obviously we see them briefly in Attack of the Clones, and then at the tail end of Revenge of the Sith, and then ultimately as Luke has grown up. But I would really like to get a little bit more story between the two of them, what that must have been like being kind of the adoptive parents, and really the same for the Organas too. But yeah, I think that um, Brew and Owen, I think that their story is pretty compelling and one that I hope we get to see more of.
Yeah, and I believe it is the same uh, actors,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
and it's going to be great to see them again. And I guess I'm kind of on the Bruise Clues train, like it's just good to
Uh,
see more of them.
yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Aunt Beru with her blue milk. I think she makes blue milk cheese. I think there was a story about that in one of the little short story New Hope books. So
That would
that would be that would be good to see. So
be good to eat, I'm sure.
that's right.
Flavorful.
That's right.
uh,
That's what we need. That's the next Galaxy's Edge treat that we need for
yeah.
sure.
I mean, who needs a Gizka taco when you can have blue cheese, blue milk cheese. So,
That's right.
yeah. Um, Another character I loved seeing introduced in this uh, story is Sister, a clone who was trans, and I think it's a great character to have with everything that's kind of unfortunately going down in a lot of the U.S. And
Hmm.
yeah, what did you think of Sister?
Yeah, I think it was a really good kind of character to bring into the story, and yeah, it's always good to get more representation out
Yeah,
into the world and into Star Wars for sure. But yeah, I thought that Sister added um, a lot to the story, and you know, yeah, and just was a really kind of yeah, just a good character to include and good representation.
yeah. I'd love to see fan art. Like, I wonder if the her armor would be decorated kind of like the flag, like with white, kind of sky blue and pink.
Hmm.
So I look forward to seeing that. If you have fan art, please send it to us.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Yeah, definitely send us some fan art. That would be great.
Speaking of sisterhood, Sabe and Padme, their friendship is goals, I think. Like just a sisterhood bond. They've been together like so much of their whole lives, and part of me just wants to see this book brought to life with like Natalie Portman and Keira Knightley.
Hmm. Sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Part of the kind of the exploration of their um, friendship and companionship and um, all that was a really interesting part because you don't think about, I guess, when when you have the queen there with their handmaidens, and then as they kind of evolve into whatever they're going to do next, like Padme becomes a senator, and the handmaidens start to play kind of less and less day to day role in her life, but that's kind of what you've been brought up to do and know how to do and love to do. So you have kind of on one hand, it's like a it's like a workplace kind of a thing, but yeah, I mean just the tremendous friendship that they had and kind of the openness and it really played into how eager they were to get back to one another and kind of rekindle their friendship and things, and I really enjoyed that part of the story as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happens in life. Like you grow up and evolve, and things don't last forever. But you just have to be thankful they're there, you know, at a certain time. And Padme was there for the handmaidens at the right time, and uh, Padme had the handmaidens, at the right time, and she always kind of had them. But like when Sabe and Padme parted ways, like for me, like when they separated, like that's on par with like a romantic breakup. Like it's
Hmm.
their friendship is as important as like uh, I guess Anakin and Padme, or like uh, other romantic relationships. And it kind of reminds me of episode 112 we did, Love, Death, and Star Wars, where we kind of talked about like there's like all kinds of love, like there's friendship, there's romance, there's family, found family, and like all the different kinds of relationships are important, and like one isn't necessarily more important than the others. And
Hmm.
Sabe and Padme really reminded me of that.
Yeah, and I mean it really kind of dove into, like I said, their friendship and their trust with one another, and how that was, kind of betrayed in a way, I guess, by Padme when she married Anakin in secret and didn't, trust Sabe to tell her straight away, and then kind of withheld it. There's a really kind of beautifully written scene in the book, kind of near the end when they're starting to address it, and it's late at night, and they were both tired, and neither of them wanted to have this conversation, but they were going to do it because
They have
of their
to.
friendship. They have to, yeah. So that was really great, I thought.
Maybe they always kind of dreamed of like having the ultimate like bridesmaids dresses, and like
Mm-hmm.
all being there and supporting, like their sister queen, and like they wanted to like have an awesome bachelorette party and stuff, but then she goes and marries someone in secret with like only droids to witness it, and it's like
Yeah,
we planned the greatest bridesmaids dresses of all time, and you did this behind our back.
that's right. Yeah, they had the spring break all planned, and then Padme went and got married instead. Just threw a wrench in it.
Yeah. So wrenches remind me of a nice segue that does not
Wow,
exist
I love it.
yet, but someday it will. If you can come up with that segue, send it to us and we will use it in the future. Or maybe a wrench is a component and we put together a new
Mm.
bridge towards a new topic. Why should readers read this book, or why should listeners on Audible listen to this book?
Yeah. So, yeah, to just kind of summarize, you should definitely read it. I think even if you didn't read the other two of the E.K. Johnsons, the Queen's Peril, Queen's Shadow series, I think that this one stands alone by itself perfectly fine. So if you didn't read the other ones, you could definitely read this one without feeling like you'd be lost or confused or anything like that. But I think that this is really important just for the overarching story of Padme Amidala and the story of Star Wars, because it really kind of it really gives life to part of her upbringing and part of her life that's really important in kind of the development of how we see Anakin fall and how Luke and Leia kind of end up the way that they do, and getting these characteristics from her mother, and it lays it out. Plus, you should really just get it for those little vignettes, if nothing else.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and it's kind of another step in the tradition of, of Star Wars. Like reminds me definitely, like I mentioned, like Matthew Stover's The Dark, and fairy tales are just always there, with Star Wars. But this book probably could have also been titled Queen's Heart, and you really get to know Padme's heart, like what she kind of holds dear. You get more of her uh, interior life, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like sometimes it feels like in modern franchises and sometimes Star Wars, it's like only the tough girls that like get highlighted, but like, and Padme's tough, she's strong, but she also loves deeply, and she loves dresses, and like there's no right way to be a woman or a person, but I think it's just like it's nice to like kind of get some justice for maybe a character that's overlooked, and uh,
Mm-hmm.
she's not passive in this book, no.
Yeah,
So
that's right. Yeah, there's enough kind of action to kind of satisfy that. But yeah, I think it's really good kind of character study. On the backdrop of the beginnings of the Clone Wars, and just what that means for the people of the galaxy and how
yeah,
seriously they're going to take it.
yeah. I mean, we'll probably introduce this episode and end this episode, and maybe at different interludes, we will have what we have lovingly titled the Sad Naboo Sounds
Yeah.
rendition, cover, if you will, of Across the Stars. But before we end, you'll kind of hear it kind of after our closing outro. So, any additional thoughts, Brian?
go pick this up and give it a read, or snag the copy on Audible and listen to it if you want Catherine Tabor to read you a story about Padme in Padme's voice. Go check it out.
Yeah, E.K. Johnston did a great job, and here's more sad Naboo sounds.